It's now almost 2 weeks since South Carolina experienced a historic flooding and rain event. And in this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with another person who guided us throughout the storm, Channel 2 meteorologist Josh Marthers. It is so good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Yeah, we were just talking in the hallway a second ago that basically you need some sleep.
It's felt like we've had 3 weeks here of non-stop weather and natural events. We had flooding 3 weeks ago, then we had the Johns Island tornado.
Oh, yeah.
Then we had another round of coastal flooding, which was some of the highest we'd seen with the supermoon. And then we had the storm that essentially brought us 20 inches plus of rain across most of the area. So it's been and then we had the aftermath, which is still ongoing from that. So it's been a long few weeks, and luckily here we fared pretty well, and at home I did as well. But there are some people that just aren't that lucky, and it's going to be a long process.
And as you were talking, I was thinking, what is it like to be Josh Marthers, the meteorologist?
Well, at times like these, it's one of those things where you've worked in school and you've learned all of this, and you get up every morning, and you essentially most of the time you're telling everybody, hey, it's going to be sunny and nice, like it is here most of the time.
Right.
But it's days like we've had over the past few weeks where it's time for you to say, okay, I'm not the guy that gets you going out of the bed in the morning. This is serious, and we got to pay attention to it. So it's one of those things that you take very seriously, it's been a long few weeks.
You touched on this a second ago, October 1st. You said this on Twitter. Significant rain event on target for Friday and Saturday, holding steady with 4 to 8 inches forecast, possibly 10 inches plus. So tell me, how did you professionally prepare for something that we really, as you mentioned, was historic? Well,
that when I was typing that forecast, I was going, my goodness, this is a lot of rain. But we saw behind the scenes that there is definitely the setup there that we could have a lot more. What we were uncertain of on September, was that September 30th?
Yeah.
Okay. What we were uncertain of from September 30th and October 1st was, where was that line going to set up? Because we knew it was going to be an area probably 100 miles across where the moisture plume was just going to rocket into South Carolina. Well, the thing is if that shifts about 50 miles north or 50 miles south, we could have completely missed this. So it was one of those things to where I was going, you know what, at this point we're very high, have a fairly high confidence that there's going to be a ton of rain. We just don't know exactly where the heaviest is going to be. So we decided as a team to go 4 to 8, then isolated 10 plus, and then ramp up as the event began, where we could get closer and focus on that area that we thought would see the worst. And then by Friday afternoon, Friday night, it was quite apparent that the worst case scenario, which was this coming in on the Charleston County coast and shooting northwest to the Midlands and then arcing into the upstate, that's really the worst case scenario for the Palmetto State because it impacts such a large area. And it also allows the terrain to help the heavy rain develop, because as that air is moving up the terrain, it's rising, and that causes the rain to become heavier. So that's why you saw this plume of incredible moisture, and you could essentially follow it with the terrain. And it was one of those things where we were going, okay, this could be the flooding event of the decade or of our generation, to, okay, this is going to be it. And I think we realized that Friday night.
And you touched on the Midlands. We, as you mentioned, we got a lot of rain and flooding, but they really got it worse. And I was talking to Dave Williams yesterday, and I basically asked him, why Columbia, not Charleston?
Well, and I'm not sure what Dave's answer was on this, but the easiest way that I know to describe it, and I did this a couple of times on the air, is you have to think about where we are here in the Low Country. The way that our soil and our terrain is, we're like a bowl. We slowly fill up. Okay, and our water spreads out. It doesn't rush. Well, in the Midlands, you have lots of hills, you have lots of rock in the soil, and what happens is that rainwater runs off, and then it goes into channels, and it's just forced down these smaller creeks and streams. Here in the low country, our rivers have a thing called wetlands, and those wetlands absorb a lot of that. So we don't see that rushing water. We just kind of fill up instead of waiting for water to rush in, which that's the problem in the Midlands and the upstate, where you get the cars that are flipped over, the bridges that are completely washed out, buildings that are completely compromised, is the force of rushing water. We don't have that here unless we have a storm surge from a hurricane. That's kind of our storm surge,
and
their storm surge, so to speak.
And you said this too, quote, barricades and cones are up for a reason. Do not drive around them. Do not become a statistic. A lot of people did become statistics in the Midlands. And when you think about that, where are you emotionally?
Well, you know, that I don't even think I can process that right now. I mean, we're still trying to get through this.
Right.
You know, it's just one of those things where we know for a fact that a lot of deaths are related to flash flooding. Flash flooding kills more people annually than tornadoes. And those are the things that a lot of people get worked up about. Water is a very powerful thing. And I don't think still, as much as we know about it, and as much as weather is a daily part of everybody's lives here, I don't think that most people think of water and flooding as that big of a threat. Well, this type of event, I think, may have changed that, especially in the Midlands.
Fill in the blanks for me. No one could enter or leave the Charles Peninsula, said what to you?
That was something that took me off guard.
Right.
When I saw that come down, that makes it real. You know, you see the radar and you see the video and you see these reports, but when you come in and you are told that statement, essentially you have a major metropolitan area, a port city. I mean, such a huge area for trade and commerce that has essentially been closed. That makes it real, and that really will unsettle your nerves when you're starting to see. You start to say, okay, this is really happening, and this is going to be that event that we feared.
Mayor O'Reilly discussing the city's plans with you and Brad was actually.
Well, you know, we talked it over after the event. I think it was, my days are running together, Quintin.
No worries.
I think he was in here on Monday or Tuesday afterwards, and you know, we talked about the drainage that has been installed in downtown and how they're still working on it. Give it another 5 or 10 years, and it's going to completely change. I mean, with that much rain that we had, the market area would have just been devastated 10 years ago.
Right.
But now, because of the pumping stations and because of that drainage, I mean, there was some water, but it was nothing like what we would have seen just a few years ago.
Yeah. And let's turn to some good news. You actually said this on Instagram. Welcome back, old friend. We really missed you. When you initially saw that sun, what did you tell yourself?
You just go, oh,
yes,
thank goodness it's here, you know?
Yes.
And the thing is that for the next 7 days, it looks like we're going to be like that. We've got a long period to dry out. The weather's going to be nice. But I will say, this winter still has a stormy look to it. Now, I don't think that we're going to see anything like what we just saw a couple of weeks ago or 2 weekends ago. That's hard to do. I mean, that's hard to do once 100 years.
Yeah, right.
It's really hard to do once or twice in a season, you know. But the problem is we have so much rain now in our water table, and our water table is so full that it's not going to take much to cause flooding. And that could last for months, you know, where we're having to watch every little storm that has a threat of dumping 2 to 4 inches of rain. It's going to cause urban flooding again, because the water just simply has nowhere to run because everything is so full. So that's kind of what we're concerned about for the winter. I hope that's not the case, but you know, it's definitely something we'll be keeping an eye on.
And also, I want to talk to you about this. Quote, we don't often have historic weather events, but when we do, Josh rolls up his sleeves.
That meme, that was funny to me.
Yes.
You know, it's one of those things where if anybody knows me, they know I'm a sweater.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like to wear a jacket. I never have. And you know, when it's one of those things,
Right.
it just gets in my way.
Right.
I will say, if you watch me on a hot July morning, a lot of times my sleeves are rolled up because it's hot in here.
Yes.
You know, it's just one of those things. But I don't think anything about it. I just thought it was funny.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, meteorologist Josh Marthers, as always, good talking to you. Thank you so
Very
much.
good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming in.
Anytime.